Einstein based his new cosmology on the train and lightning thought experiment. It was overly simplified, so I increased the number of tracks and trains to test his reasoning. Paradox of relativity number 134, 4 trains, a device that flashes at regular intervals like this functions as a clock. I called it the flash clock. Imagine that there are 4 train tracks near the clock, and 4 trains are traveling on them at the speed of light. You will witness a scene that contradicts the theory of relativity. Observer 01, standing on the ground, observes the flash 5 times. Observer 02, who is on a train moving away from the clock at the speed of light, does not receive the light from the clock, so interprets this as time being frozen in the coordinate system fixed to the clock. Relativity is correct when it comes to comparing these two cases. The only difference that relativity can explain is the difference between these two observations. The number of flashes observed by observer 03, who is on a train moving toward the clock at the speed of light, is 10 plus or minus 1. Because the speed of light is twice as fast in 03's coordinate system, twice as many flashes reach 03 compared to 01, however. There may be an error of plus or minus 1. Relativity cannot explain this result. Pay attention to observers 04 and 05. The flash also reaches observers moving at the speed of light at an angle to the clock. Pay attention to observers 04 and 05. The flash also reaches observers moving at the speed of light at an angle to the clock. It is possible to set an infinite number of angles in the direction of motion of an inertial system relative to a single light source, but the theory of relativity can only explain one specific angle. The flaws in the theory of relativity are extremely serious, but the reason is clear. Einstein set extremely specific conditions in his train and lightning thought experiment, which is the starting point of his reasoning, and so the theory can only explain cases with the same conditions. I have explained in detail in other videos that his thought experiment is a trick. Einstein deduced a universal law of the universe from extremely limited conditions, and anyone with sane thinking abilities should have rejected it as a delusion. However, while there were people who rejected his hypothesis, no one exposed the trick. Physicists have an extremely low ability to unravel tricks and are easily fooled. Question 1. There is a clock that emits light at a constant cycle. According to the theory of relativity, in 2 inertial frames where the relative speed is the speed of light. When observers in one of the frames look at the other coordinate frame, they will find that time is frozen in that frame. This experiment is impossible in reality, but it is possible as a thought experiment. This animation visualizes this. The freezing of time is not observed with the exception of observer 02. If you still insist that the theory of relativity is correct, please explain why time does not freeze in observations other than those of 02. Physicists have been trying to understand the universe under the conditions set by Einstein for over 100 years, so they have not noticed the contradictions in the theory of relativity. There's no point in waiting for physicists to wake up, so I'm going to break the spell of Einstein. The Doppler effect occurs not only in light and sound, but also in the observation of time. You might think it's surprising, but it's absolutely certain. The expanding red circle in this video represents the propagation of a periodically emitted flash through space. In this case, the spacing between the circles accurately reflects the spacing between events, the light being emitted. Correction, however. It is also possible to interpret these red circles as representing the propagation of waves. In that case, the wavelength changes in a coordinate system that is moving relative to the light source. This is the Doppler effect. It is correct to infer that if the Doppler effect occurs in observed wavelengths of light, it also occurs in observed intervals between events. The prediction that the Doppler effect occurs when observing time is 100% correct, and this video proves it. This is the correct theory of time, and no further evidence is needed. Misinterpretation of neutrino oscillation. Physicists assumed that the speed of neutrinos was the speed of light, so they predicted that time must be frozen. According to the theory of relativity, matter with mass cannot reach the speed of light, so it was assumed that neutrinos have no mass. These assumptions were denied when it was confirmed that neutrinos change. This is the interpretation of neutrino oscillation in physics. This discovery itself is amazing, but its interpretation is wrong. I would like to point out 3 problems with it. 1. Freezing time is a phenomenon, not a fact. This is an example of a mirage image, but the floating ship is a phenomenon and not a fact. As you can see, observations and reality can diverge greatly. A person moving away from an object at the speed of light cannot see the object, and so receives no information about the passage of time, and can only assume that time is frozen. To be more precise, when traveling at the speed of light, what is behind you becomes pitch black, so you can't see anything. But if you do calculations, you arrive at the answer that the progress of time is 0 in that area. This is the mechanism by which the time freezing phenomenon occurs. In this video, it only occurs in O2. However, as you can see, the clock is not frozen. 2. Neutrinos are quanta that arrive on Earth from the Sun or from far away in space. And in this case the phenomenon of time freezing does not occur. In this image, this corresponds to the relative movement of the light source and observer O3. Time does not freeze on the clock that O3 looks at. Rather, time appears to be compressed and twice as dense. Of course, this is caused by the Doppler effect of time. 3. There is a contradiction in assuming that time freezing actually occurs. Question 2. It is discovered that time bombs have been planted on rockets R1 and R2, which are traveling at nearly the speed of light. They are about to pass each other, and the culprit predicts that both bombs will explode at that moment. If the theory of relativity is correct, then accelerating the rockets to the speed of light should freeze time and prevent the explosions. Can both explosions really be stopped? In that case, time would be frozen between the 2 rockets. This result does not contradict relativity in the Earth's coordinate system, but a contradiction occurs in the rocket's coordinate system. In R1's coordinate system, R1 is at rest, so only R2's bomb can stop the explosion. In R2's coordinate system, R2 is at rest, so only R1's bomb can stop the explosion. According to relativity, 2 possible results would be necessary. But there is only one result. Present a result that is consistent. Sample answer that's not possible. Physicists secretly base their reasoning on absolute velocities. In that case, no contradictions arise, so it's confirmed. The logical reasoning about neutrinos is as follows. The speed of neutrinos is not certain, but it is close to the speed of light. So physicists have assumed that neutrinos have no mass based on the theory of relativity. This reasoning was wrong from the start. If the mass of air was 0, no matter how strong the wind, a yacht would not move at all. If neutrinos, which have no electric charge, had 0 mass, nothing would happen when they collided with matter, and no one would know of their existence. Therefore, it is possible that neutrinos have mass and travel at the speed of light. Neutrinos may be proof that the hypothesis of relativity that time freezes and mass becomes infinite when matter travels at the speed of light is wrong. Correction if there is a possibility. A true researcher would not exclude it from their thinking, but it seems that there are very few people who do this. Einstein's thought control is hindering the development of cosmology.